Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Yankee and Canuck podcast, a show where we discuss TV, film, and more.
And I'm your host, a Yankee.
And I'm your host, Canuck.
And today we're going to be talking about The Acolyte, Episode 3. Do you want to go first? I need a little bit
Yeah, yeah,
to contain myself.
that's right. We're going to be discussing the third episode of The Acolyte. Also, folks, keep in mind, this isn't the spoiler-free review you're looking for. We finally get transported 16 years into the past. We find out some of those details of what really transpired, right? We got a hint of it in the first two episodes. Unfortunately, we don't find out much more because this is basically a filler episode. Doesn't answer a whole lot. There's not a whole lot of advancement. It's pretty slow, uneventful, and we have more questions than ever.
God.
Great, great.
I have questions
But
too. What's the audacity of these people that think they can completely change and thinking that it's okay?
yeah, I mean,
Like, what the dude?
that's something that they'll have to answer for. But I'm still looking for that Star Wars magic because you sure as hell won't find it in this episode.
Everyone's got to
The
be
first two
fired.
episodes,
Everyone has to be
still.
fired. Everyone absolutely needs to be fired, or else it's
Yeah.
not gonna. It's not gonna happen.
I don't think that this one episode completely tanks the show for me entirely. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but maybe it's a reverse Ahsoka thing where instead of starting out strong and getting weaker by the end, this show starts out weak, really hits rock bottom, and then progresses and concludes on a high note.
I don't know
We're gonna
how.
find
I
out.
don't. I don't really know how that's gonna bounce back, but I'm curious to see
Yeah.
what kind of train wreck we're in for at this point, because that's what this
Man,
is.
man. I mean, the way I look at it is this is a backstory episode, and they have a chance to, redeem themselves with the present when they go back to the present. I'm still gonna give it a chance, even though this episode was bad, and because that's all I can do, at this point. So
I'm just seeing how many bodies are piled up after this horrific car crash ensued. That's all I'm doing. Okay, there's an arm
okay.
there. Oh, that looks like it belongs to a little girl. Oh, there's an old man over there too. I want to see how much carnage there is. Well, basically, what the episode is about, it's like you said, the backstory between Osha and May. We get into where they come from and why there's this big vendetta against the Jedi, at least on May's part. So, yeah, I mean, apparently there's like a lesbian witch coven or something like that out in the middle of nowhere, and they know the Force, but they don't call it the Force. They reinterpret it as something else called the Thread. And here's the thing. I'm not against that. Some people were really, really against that. I'm not against that at all. I think if you're going to have something as big as a galaxy and something like the Force existing in that galaxy, there's going to be all kinds of different denominations like interpreting what the Force is, maybe even renaming it, maybe even trying to find different ways to utilize it for their own benefit. I'm not against that. I think that's pretty cool. What I'm against is the way that ultimately we're forced to sit 15 to 20 minutes of boring ass exposition through boring ass characters, hear terrible chants like the power of one, the power of two, what comes after two, the power of many. I'm like, what? What
That's
is this? Is terrible. What?
that's the witch ascension ceremony. Yeah, that was really annoying. It was really corny. Power of one, power of two. How about the power of shut the hell up? And give us some material? How about the
I
power of some good writing, please?
exactly.
And
The bad writing was kind of apparent from the beginning. When I say bad writing, people have different interpretations of what bad writing means because it's such a broad,
true,
vague term. What I
that's true.
specifically mean by bad writing is that there's no structure to these episodes. There's no characterization. There's a lot of exposition that doesn't really tell you much of anything. And by the end of it, it's just like it is. It just feels like a filler episode, and it's not supposed to be a filler episode. It's supposed to give you more context as to why the principal main characters are the way they are. Again, I do like the whole denomination of the Force kind of a thing. It's like the difference between a Judeo-Christian, a Catholic, a Muslim. They all believe in more or less the same sort of thing, but they have a wildly different interpretation of it. That's essentially what this is, and I'm like, I'm for that. That's kind of cool. Lesbian witch coven, fine, whatever. Another thing that people were complaining about was, well, this makes the whole virgin birth like not special anymore for Anakin Skywalker because it seems like anyone can make a Force user like out of nowhere. I'm like, not that's not exactly true. I think people are overblowing that because going with the prequels, yes, was there a virgin birth? Yes, there was, but that was a natural kind of event. That's the way that was presented as. Shmi was just suddenly pregnant with Anakin, gave birth to him. That's what that was. Whereas in here, it's all the details are not explicitly laid out yet,
That's
but
right.
it's heavily implied that the witches were able to use the Force to conjure up these twins out of thin air. So it's the difference between naturally occurring and conjuring it up. It's a difference between, if you go into biblical terms, like, an angel blesses Mary's belly through, the grace of God or whatever and gives birth to Jesus, and summoning a demon and getting possessed by a demon. That to me seems to be like the closest analogy I have for something like this. And that's why that's why May in particular is evil. And Osha may not be evil or as evil. She's maybe more ambiguous. Because there's just something about the way that the Force was used to make this birth happen. All that stuff is interesting. Again, the way it was presented, terrible, awful. And not only that, the Jedi coming in, and a lot of people were complaining too, like, well, the Jedi seem like child abductors. And I'm like, yeah. Again, that's just the way they were written. It's terrible. What they really should have done is the Jedi is trying to crack down on, all these pagan sects that are utilizing the Force for their own, reason. And that's because, the whole thing about the Chosen One prophecy with Anakin Skywalker, there could have been another prophecy. It's like, well, you got to be careful of these sects, because if you utilize the Force in an unnatural kind of way, you end up bringing Dark Force users. And that could inadvertently lead up to Palpatine or something like that. We know how Anakin came to be. How about Palpatine? And that causes, this dark rift to happen and stuff like that. And the Jedi kind of know about this, and they're trying to crack down on it. And of course, you have this witch coven that has their own interpretation of the Force, obviously. And they're like, well, we don't want to do that. We don't want to tell the Jedi because we don't want them to interfere with our affairs. We think that you're not fully realizing the true potential of the Force. That, to me, again, really interesting. Shitly done in this episode. 100% shitly done. Because none of those ideas, if that was the intention, not expressed well at all.
Yeah, I agree. Are they using the Anakin arc? We don't know. There's so many things that we don't know, So they use the Force to create May and Osha. As far as we know, the issue I have with that right off the bat is somehow they figured out something that Darth Tenebris, Darth Plagueis, even Palpatine couldn't figure out. So generations of Sith with thousands of years of holocrons, pretty much infinite wealth and knowledge, they weren't able to achieve that. From my understanding, even in the garbage sequels, I don't think that Palpatine even achieved that either. I think it was more of a cloning thing. That's how they explained it. I try to not think about the sequels, so somehow this group of witches that escaped and went to the Outer Rim to escape whatever persecution or whatnot, somehow they figured out this. I don't know. Maybe that is the case, but I think we'd like to see how that plays out. We'd like to know, explained properly, basically. Otherwise, we're calling bullshit. That's the way I look at it. Apparently, in the Darth Plagueis novel, which isn't canon anymore, that he does achieve an ability to create life with midichlorians. Either way, that's not canon. So the only reference we have that of something like that is in the opera scene in Episode 3, where Palpatine says, "You ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?" to Anakin, just to manipulating him. We can't really take his word for it because he may have just been saying that to keep Anakin further down the path of the dark side and basically to manipulate him, right? So that isn't good enough. So there isn't any evidence that they were ever able to achieve something. So apparently this group, though, has. Let's present the evidence. Let's see what's up. Otherwise, it's nonsense.
Yeah, I see your point there. I still think there's merit to the idea of, manipulating the Force in this way to, make new things or new people or whatever.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. You just have to we have to be presented that and show us that and explain it.
Yeah, I know. It's like you said. You have all these holocrons and all this other, thousands and thousands of years of Sith knowledge specifically, and they can't even do it, but these people can. Yeah, it is a big hole. Yeah. That's why there could have been some sort of a collaboration, maybe. Maybe they're just maybe they do tap into Sith teachings or something like that. We needed extra information, and the extra information isn't there because the main showrunner, the main person that's running this, is like, I want to do my own version of the Force, and this is what it is. This is the Rian Johnson shit all over again. That's what this is. I'm gonna do something different because I want to subvert expectations because I'm smarter than everyone. Fuck you, dude. Fuck you.
Going back to something you said earlier, I don't know why people are so upset that the witches are all women. Clearly
I don't care about that. I actually like that. That's pretty cool, actually.
It's Star Wars, too. They don't know much about Star Wars if that's their opinion, because Night Sisters are well established
Yeah.
in the games, in the shows, live action, in the animated series.
I thought they were Night Sisters too, but they just called themselves witches or something.
Whether this is a different coven and they're not Night Sisters, one Night Sisters utilize magic, not the Force, and these people on this planet are not using magic, and so they're tapping into what they refer to, or they call it something else, not the Force, the threads
The
and whatever
thread.
the hell.
That kind of reminds me of the whole Walking Dead thing where they have like a billion different names for zombie.
Right, exactly, yeah. So I mean, at the end of the day, that criticism I don't even agree with. The Night Sisters on Dathomir, of course, there were men there. They were called Night Brothers.
Yeah.
Darth Maul's father was a what is it, a Zabrak, and they're basically servants to the Night Sisters because it's a matriarchal society. So this coven of witches isn't the same. It doesn't operate the same, and that's just the way it is. I don't know why people are upset about that.
It's woke Canuck, didn't you hear?
Exactly. So people are always gonna. There's always gonna be a percentage of people that complain about everything. I wouldn't be surprised that there are people complaining there's not enough white people in it, which isn't true because technically three out of the four, three I mean including the Wookiee, 3 out of 4 of the Master Jedi are all white. So the Wookiee is played by a white actor.
That's a stretch,
So
but okay.
yeah. So anyways, 2 of them are white. There's white people in every episode. So
I think
people
what they
complaining
what
about
they
there's not
really
enough white people. They need to also
they really
calm down.
mean they really mean to say there's not enough white men, and of that there's only like one guy, which is funny because like that
That's good
kid.
enough. But,
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, either way, who gives a shit? But it's.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I thought it was funny that the kid there is the same kid he used Torben from the last episode. And it's literally a kid in old person's makeup. That's why it looks like a.
yeah.
That's why he looks so weird.
Yeah.
But
It was goofy looking, you know.
it was. It did
Taped
seem
the beard
off.
on him and it receded his hair a bit, and yeah, it was just.
Yeah, it's
They
like
just, you know,
they could have just cast a different actor. I don't know. Whatever.
I don't know. I mean, but either way, so some of these people's complaints are nonsense, and a lot of it you can tell is due to their lack of knowledge on Star Wars, and they're coming at it at a different angle, different agenda. So that's their problem.
Yeah, I don't really care what they have to think ultimately. And again, you know, it's just like some of these complaints are just like, yeah, that's like they're just ignoring basic facts about Star Wars. Putting those aside, though, I mean, like I'm focusing squarely on the way it was written. Another thing that's just absolutely hilarious is how cartoonishly evil May is. It's like she's just evil for right off the bat. I get it in a way, but the characterization still could have been a lot better. It's like that movie The Good Son with Macaulay Culkin and Elijah Wood, where in that movie basically it's about this little psychopathic kid that goes on like a spree, like killing things and torturing people and whatever. But there was a gradual arc to that particular character, whereas May is just like first she's just a bitch, and then she's just straight up like, I'm gonna kill you. She literally says to Osha at one point, I want to kill you, because Osha expressed interest in joining the Jedi when the Jedi come in. And I'm like, what? I understand being angry, but straight up like, I want to kill you. And then literally after that, she has like a torch, and then she burns down the coven.
Burns down the entire compound. I guess that one lantern just burned everything down, you know.
But it's the Jedi. But it's the Jedi's fault.
Yeah, the one thing you notice right off the bat is she's kind of, you know, dark. I mean, they're all dark side users in the sense
They are.
So there's actually a line that they even said, the way that they were able to create them. You know, if the Jedi find out how this came to pass, you know, basically we're going to be in trouble. So just like the Night Sisters, I'm sure this group taps into the dark side of the Force, and that's how they managed to do all this. And so that's why it'd be problematic if the Jedi find out.
I guess you could say they're more curious about it, but they're reckless with the Force. They don't seem to know exactly what they're doing. And again, the Jedi could have been tied into that. Like, hey, listen, they mentioned some galactic law or something like that, but the Jedi could have been like, listen, we're cracking down on Force users here. What we call Force, what you call Thread, whatever you want to call it. We're cracking down on you people because you're not supposed to be doing this, because this and this and that could happen. And of course, the Coven's like, you know, you Jedi, you're so arrogant telling us what to do. Like, we're doing things that you never will be able to do. So blah, 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 blah. There's like maybe a competition there or something like that. That's interesting. Yeah. To me, that's interesting. They did not explore that.
The only thing that they said was they're outside. That planet is outside of the Republic, so those Republic laws don't apply to them because they fled from wherever they're from to that place that's outside of the jurisdiction of the Republic. So then you wonder, how did the Jedi find them there? You know, and things. So then that opens up even more questions.
Yeah,
And
well,
then
Jedi
obviously a big question.
Jedi are basically missionaries at this point.
Okay, another question is, these children are like 10 or something. So usually children that age never join the Jedi Order.
Yeah,
So there must be something more that isn't explained. Because I mean, even Anakin was 8 or 9, and he was rejected by the Jedi. I mean, nobody wanted to, but after Qui-Gon died, Obi-Wan forced the council to let him train because that was Qui-Gon's wishes.
yeah.
But otherwise, he's too old. Like so,
As a
so
big
they need to explain something.
yeah, as a big aside, I never was a fan of that in the prequels, because Luke Skywalker was how old when he was trained with the Force? I
I mean,
maybe
it's a little different because there's no one left. So he's
I
literally, as they said in the original trilogy, he's the last chance of hope.
yeah, sure, but
A little
it
different.
just makes that age restriction a little
Yeah.
absurd to me. But whatever.
But that's how traditionally how the Jedi did things because because look at how these kids in Osha and May. One of them is already kind of sinister. She was like torturing that little bird in the beginning or whatever.
That little butterfly thing,
And
whatever it was, yeah.
yeah, I mean, so and then she's threatens to kill her sister. Which so clearly, and the parents don't discipline these kids. The
Oh
one
yeah,
parent's like, "Hey, have some ice cream," and the other one's like, "You should do something. We need to discipline them." And
yeah.
the other one's like, "No, no," and then they're like, "What are we gonna do with them?" Oh, I don't know.
We can't spank him. That's wrong. Let's give him the dark side of the Force. Yeah. Hey kid,
Yeah.
here's a tablet full of the dark side of the Force. Have at it. Yeah.
So I mean, this whole episode, and then going back to what happens at the end. Of course, we still don't know. There's more questions now. Why are they all in the room laying there dead? They obviously didn't catch on fire. I don't see any rubble either. So, what did the Jedi kill all of them? I don't know. Like maybe.
That was
I guess we'll find out.
extreme. That was like not relayed very well at all. I mean, if it is a case where something else happened to him and it wasn't because of the fire, again, that's just really poor. That's really I can't say it's an
Yeah,
editing thing at all. It's whatever was actually filmed, and whatever was filmed was actually on paper. It's just a writing thing. It's just so shittily written. It's like, okay, we're gonna create like this big mystery as to why the Coven's dead for now, so we could put it off at a later time and make it a reason why May is going after the Jedi and why Osha didn't see it and she's like pro Jedi or something. I'm like, this is just shitty writing 101. That's all it really is.
yeah.
Like
Well,
whoever's writing this is just doing a really terrible job.
Oh, I totally agree with that, man. And I see something that there could be kind of like what Obi-Wan said to Luke on Dagobah, as far as from a point of view, a certain point of view, right? So from Soul and certain point of view, the fire caused this incident, and that may be true. However, my assumption or what I feel may have transpired is maybe the Jedi ran in there because they saw the fire happen, and then there was a back and forth, and a confrontation, occurred, and then Jedi killed the witch coven. I mean, I think that's we're gonna find out, right? But I think that might be an explanation for it.
Yeah,
And
but
so when
that'd
so
be
when they say it was the fire and it was May who did this, not the full truth. It was she started it, but it's the Jedi who actually perpetrated.
yeah, but that makes the Jedi look
So
really bad though.
we'll see.
They
I
might as well
mean,
be Sith at that point.
we don't know exactly what occurred in that room, because maybe the Jedi went in there because there's a fire, and then things just escalated back and forth. This is
Of
all your
course.
fault. No, this is your fault. You did this. Who knows? I mean,
I guess, but at this point it's just like
oh,
uh,
maybe it's because that Torben guy. They mess with his mind too, right? In one scene.
oh yeah, that's true.
So maybe something like that happens, and it just spirals out of control. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
I
sure
mean
we're
that
gonna
would
find
be
out
that wouldn't be bad if they did something like that. That'd be actually pretty decent. Um,
something like that. I mean, my concern is this opened up so many more questions, right? I hope we're not spending a whole nother episode on this
yeah,
past
I hope not.
16 years of past.
Oh
They need to
man,
spend like 10 minutes and wrap it up and go
oh,
back to the present.
if they came to the table and said like, okay, we're gonna introduce another coven. They're not the Night Witches. They're a different coven. They're gonna use the Force in a bad way, but they're not malicious. They just want to experiment with the Force. The Jedi's not cool with it, so they come in. But you have someone who's part of the Witch Coven or part of the Jedi squad, and they're squabbling amongst each other, and then they frame the other group for whatever, and there's a murder that happens. These twins were conjured up from the Force, and unfortunately, because they were done the wrong way, one of them's super evil, the other one's more ambiguous, and that's the show. I'm like, that's cool. That's a cool idea.
Yeah.
I like the idea, but instead you have this hackery going about, and and it's just like, let's just start with killing Carrie Ann Moth, and then there's a lot of talking about stuff that's boring and doesn't make any sense, and then
Right.
we fill another episode like that, and then we do a flashback episode. And there's nothing but boring talking and a really crappy chant for the first 15-20 minutes, and then it ends.
Please, please, please do not make an Old Republic TV series or film. Because you can't even do this, right? Don't mess up everything else too, you know?
Yeah, cancel that. Cancel the Rogue Squadron movie.
Yeah.
Anything that's good in Star Wars, just cancel it. Don't do it
Yeah.
anymore. Just do like another 5 Rey movies. That's all you can do, right? And in each one, she's just like even more powerful than the last.
There you go.
Just do that, and if no one watches it, so what? You wasted like what, $3-5 billion on this shit. Just like,
That's the thing that's crazy. You know, you have a fractured fan base, right? And isn't it in your interest to make good content? You know, I understand that a lot of Star Wars fans are toxic. They've always been toxic, you know. There's a lot of fans and they're more so now than even like when the prequels were out. It's worse now. And at the end of the day though, I mean Disney and stuff, you still have an obligation to the Star Wars fans to make some good content
I
instead
agree.
of this rubbish, you know. So
Yeah, and a lot of people misinterpret what that really means and stuff. And it's just like, listen, you can have people of color, you can have women star in it. I don't give a
absolutely.
put some trans people.
Good,
I
yeah.
don't give a just like
Absolutely.
ultimately
Yeah.
what Star Wars is about. It's an old fashioned space adventure series.
Yep.
That's all it is. You're taking the original serials from the early 20th century, and you're reapplying it to modern day. That's all you're doing.
Exactly.
And and obviously we have an Andor as well. It's a more sophisticated subterfuge kind of show. That's fine. And then you have all these other different flavors of Star Wars. Thing is though, it's just like, just concentrate on making the damn thing good. Stop this nonsense. Stop this nonsense that people don't care about.
Agreed. They need to cut this shit out. Anyways, folks, thanks for tuning in to our thoughts on this episode of The Acolyte, episode 3. Stay tuned for episode 4 review next week. And let's see if they extinguish this dumpster fire they created, or just pour more fuel on it. I suspect it may be the latter, because at this point it's clear to me they don't give a f.
Goodbye, everyone.
And may the force be with
You mean the thread. That's what you mean.
you. Oh, thread.
May
Right.
the thread be threaded within you.
Thread on, man.